Thank you very much for being the last session of the day, but it's the panel. So I'm super excited to have you both here. And I started with a question for the audience beforehand. And if you're still, this is for the audience, so we would love to hear your responses, your answers. If you're still in Java 8, why are you not moving? So please send us your answers. So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Simone and Kay.
Go for it, Kay.
Okay. Well, I'm Kai Horstmann, the man who needs no introduction. Well, actually, I'm the author of the core Java book that's been around for 20-some years. It's probably what I'm best known for, and that's what keeps me looking at the forefront of Java. Right now, I'm working on the Java 17 edition.
Wow, nice. I didn't know you were refreshing the book, but great.
Oh, yes, that's my sad lot in life.
Right. So I'm Simone. I work on the Jetty project fundamentally. Yeah, I like to hack on web protocols and JVM internals and performance. So yeah, I run the Java user group in my local town, Torino. So we have this interactions with the Java and JVM panel and what's new and what's coming in Java every 6 months. And so, I'm apparently I'm qualified for this panel as well. So that's good.
Of course. Okay. So I have a series of questions for you. One of the most interesting ones, at least for me, and I think for the audience, is what should we dream about in the next Java? Like, what are you looking forward to? What it could be? Yeah.
Kai, you're always the honor.
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like I'm the dreamer on the panel. So I mean, there's for various reasons, as a user of Java, as a book author, one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, not in Java 17, which is going to be out this fall, but probably over the next 3 years, is what's called Project Valhalla, where there's going to be a grand unification in the virtual machine between primitive types and classes. So where that distinction that really from the programmer's point of view is pretty artificial ceases to exist. And more than that, where one can now lay out objects flat in memory without having to have that extra level of indirection that you right now have with every object pointer. So you could have an array of 1,000 points, and they're just sitting there x, y, x, y, x, y, x, y in one array. And all of that supposedly will be super transparent to developers. Of course, it won't be because it's built on 25 years of technology, and there'll be all sorts of little sharp edges. But they're diligently working on removing many of them. So, for example, you'll be able to then, at some point in the future, have an array list of int without having to worry how that really works internally. And so it'll greatly clean up a lot of the generic stuff. If you think about right now, where you have lots of specialization classes for, you have like an int stream, a long stream, and a double stream, instead of just having a stream of int. So that is something that I very, very much look forward to. And I think both for performance and for the cleanliness of the language, it's going to be a huge advance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Definitely so. One thing that I was thinking, Kai, maybe you can confirm this, is that one thing that I missed, which is admittedly very low level, is the ability to do separate fields in memory so that, especially, for example, for queue implementation of stuff, you don't suffer from false sharing. So far, there has been like a number of tricks in order to try to achieve that. But I think that if we can lay out objects in memory, then I can just lay out a bunch of in-between longs or whatever, and then have my spacing correctly done in a stable manner rather than relying on hotspots, internals, or magic. What do you think?
Yes, that's not going to come, I don't think. I mean, it's so against the spirit of Java, right? I mean, you're going to have faith and hotspot to
I know, but I can allocate an array of, let's say, I don't know, 64 longs, and then reference only the first, and then only the last.
Sure, you can do that. And today, people do crazy things, right? They will do just that and then force their entire storage into that. But that's not really Java, right? Yes, you sometimes have to. You and I probably don't have to do this, but some people, the finance people, tell me they need to do that sometimes. But that is not where it's moving.
Yep. So no, I totally agree. I actually have recently started to play a little bit more with records and sealed classes, and they're just awesome. I mean, you code with them so nicely that I was actually surprised. I mean, the surprise effect is quite stunning. It's so easy, so clean. You can write like a lot of code in zero time, and just reading it makes total sense. And there's no, hiding, very little boilerplate. I was actually pleasantly surprised of these improvements.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because there's been some doubt about the uptake of records, right? That everyone who sees records for the first time says, "Oh, this is great! I can get rid of all of my carrier classes, all of the getters and setters." Well, but not the setters, right? Because records are immutable. So you must have done it right, because you said, "Oh, this is just what I need." So you had no need for mutation. The worry is there that all of the people who were doing Java Beans kind of stuff and like employee data and whatever, and JPA, that they're going to be very disappointed when they see that, in fact, the records aren't going to do what they want to do. Of course, they could rewrite their code to be less immutable, and that's the direction in which, of course, the platform wants to drive us to. But yeah, I mean, records, I think, are a quick win when they work. So there's been some research by some fellow at Google who looked at, they had a similar feature in a library where they have a code generator that makes like record-like things. And they said, looking at how often programmers took advantage of it, they say records are on the order of magnitude as enum. So they used to have an enum generator before enums came along, and people used it a certain percentage of cases. And they said with records, it's the same order of magnitude. So it'll be a nice feature, but it won't be a game changer. But when you use it, hey, yeah, it makes your code clean, and you express what you want to express, and that's what the language should be all about.
So you're saying that the records were actually generated 10 times more than enums?
No, the same at the same, or I mean, about as often, yeah.
Okay.
That's why I don't see that there's going to be a great exodus to records. I've talked to someone who's teaching this, and he said he's actually thinking of first teaching records and then teaching classes, because records, if you think about it, are conceptually simpler. And I'm not really sure how comfortable people are going to feel about saying that encapsulation is kind of an added extra. But that's what he's proposing.
Okay.
I do actually like that idea, because you start with the concept of immutability, that if you apply later on, we suffer from that, like applying that concept too late, and then the problems arise.
Yeah, no, it could be, right? And you have less baggage. You teach records, you teach methods, and then afterwards you get into public-private. So maybe he's onto something.
Yeah, information hiding, though, I think it's like...
that's the thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because record, actually, they are designed in a way that they exactly do zero information hiding. They don't even try. They try to be as transparent as possible with the data that they wrap. So, yeah. So just to go back to the first question that Ishel gave to the audience. Yeah. So I see people saying, I like number 8. Okay. That's obviously a magic answer. But then more than that, it's like, moving to 11, great. Our organization has legacy limitations. However, I would like to ask these people that have limitations in their organization, whether they use some other libraries. Like, for example, the one case that I'm always discussing when migrating out of Java 8 is the following: are you on an old operative system version? Meaning you're not updating your operative system since years. Are you on Spring 2 if you're using Spring 2? And if you're not on Spring 2 and you are on Spring 5, or you are in the latest patch for your operative system, why are you still on Java 8? That's the answer that I would like to get, because there are cases where you have to stay on Java 8. Definitely so. For example, there's another example that says Java 8 because AWS requires it or doesn't support anything else. For AWS support, that's fair. I don't know. I'm not keen to judge on that, in the sense that I don't know enough AWS platform to say why they're not supporting 11 or even more recent versions. But the key point to me is the following, and maybe this is something that we can discuss, Kai, which is Java 17 is going to last, from the openjdk point of view, 6 months like any other release. The long-term support label is not something that belongs to openjdk. It belongs to a vendor that says so. But fundamentally, Java 17 is not different from 16 from the openjdk development point of view. It is as stable as any other release, and
Yeah, I mean, that actually is something that I'm always a little bit concerned about, and that I think that Oracle has not done a great deal of a job with the messaging. That there was just a discussion right now where someone who should remain unnamed, it was Mark Reinhold, said, yeah, just put in all the stuff that you want into 17. And I think that's a mistake. I mean, if 17 gets a bunch of experimental things, then what's going to happen with them after 6 months? I asked that question, and I was told, yeah, they're going to freeze them at that experimental state for 3 years, 5 years, whatever the term of an LTS is. So I think that kind of thing needs to be a little bit rethought. And I think some of the vendors would be wise to say, well, that of course they would just remove the experimental things after 6 months or whatever. But it is a complexity, right? We do rely on these vendors. I'm glad there are many of them now. At first it looked like it was maybe only Oracle and one others, but now, I mean, we have an embarrassment of riches there of vendors who are willing to support these releases for a long time, and oftentimes at no cost, and for longer than 3 years, right? So we can't complain there. But yeah, the process, I think, you would think that after all these years should be smooth, but I think it could be better defined. So I think we need the long-term, the LTS releases. Right?
At the openjdk level rather than at the vendor level.
That would be better if there was a recognition at the openjdk level, in my opinion, that those should be qualitatively different. Right now, that is not the case. And we're going to have to see what the various vendors do to make better sense out of that. We've never really been in that situation before, right? So now with 11, okay, but 17 is like the first one that comes like in this rapid train. What I would like to see is an LTS version of 17 minus the experimental features. And I don't think there's anything that would stop a vendor from doing that, because it would seem to me crazy to backport for 3 or 5 years into something that no one uses. I mean, that's not of anyone's interest. So if I was king, I would say 5 out of 6 times Oracle can put in what they want, and the 6 out of the 6 times they should think about stability.
Okay, that's fair. Maybe it's a proposal that can be, attempted, and see what they reply. I mean, doesn't seem too out of the world. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, if you really want the feedback, it can happen in different releases, not precisely an LTS. So
Exactly.
I'm with you there. Like the LTS should be, because the whole point is to freeze it, to have long-term support. You don't want to have like things like tryouts there. I agree with you, Kate.
Even though, it's the usual process where, for example, we have stumbled upon a method handle bug that was introduced in Java 14, and that broke a number of tests that we had in Jetty for implementing WebSocket. And the bug was fixed in Java 16. So it took 2 major versions of Java to be fixed. And it wasn't an easy bug. It was reported by us, and then they were working on it, but the easy was not fixed, and they had to go through a lengthy process of evaluating the bug and finding the right solution. That took a year, and so right now we have tests that are disabled. So what if something like that happened in Java 17? I mean, it can happen, but that's one more reason to me to try to stay up to date as much as possible. Because
Oh, totally, right? But I mean, anything can happen. Of course, a bad bug could be introduced in 17. Presumably, then there would be an extra effort to deal with it. But look at the bright side. There was a bug in 14, and it was fixed in 16. And really, no one except you and me care about 14 and 16. No one's running it in production, I would imagine. And so the system works, right? You get before. How would you have?
Before, unless you get the bug in 17, and then now you have to wait 19 to get it fixed.
There's now a 5 and 6 chance that doesn't happen, but it's there before, right? So I think having these frequent releases is a win.
Yeah.
It's just one has to realize who are the audience for those releases. You are the audience for those releases, and not like everyone here who's listening and wants to put this in production. So be grateful the releases are there, the frequent releases. Understand what they're there for, and I think that's a positive. Yes, it's just the fine points have to be worked out. To me means that the LTS should have a more special status. And hey, the other thing is, couldn't have a better version number. I mean, really, 11, 17, 23. I mean,
they're almost all primes, so don't worry.
No, they can't be all primes. Right? I mean, it's an arithmetic sequence.
Yeah, right. So another comment that I see here is very laconic here, is cost. Well, okay, but what does it cost to you to update, to the latest Spring release, to the latest version of all the libraries that you use? For example, if you use Tomcat or Jetty or Undertow or JBoss, eventually you have to upgrade and to fix bugs or to be on the latest one, for example, because of security issues. And so that comes, of course, with a cost, but the same goes with the JDK, and staying on 8 rather than moving to a more recent version has the same cost than pretty much everything else. So, and the downside of this, which is something that maybe I want to introduce in the discussion, is the following. You stay on Java 8, and what happens is that you accumulate technical debt, because eventually you have to pay a larger cost when you upgrade from 8 to 17, right? Or to a later version. Not only that, it is that if you're not aware, because you've been out of the market for years, and you're not aware that now you can do text blocks, you're not aware that you can do advanced instance of syntax, you're not aware that you can use records and seal classes, isn't that putting the company that is keeping things at Java 8 out of the market, especially for people that work there? Are they going out of the market? Don't they fear this to become somehow an old company where people is now really, we're still in Java 8, we could use 17, but we can't, we're now running out of market, I'm going to search for a new job? Is this something that maybe scares people? Please answer. I don't, well, the three of us, I don't think we kind of are in this situation, but I would be interested in comments about this. It's like, are you worried about this or totally not?
Well, there is a question from the audience is that maybe we can, or you can try to answer, is that an 11 update release, let's say 11.09, most likely will contain different patches if you get it from Oracle, Adobe OpenJDK, Corretto, Azul, etc. How worried are you about this fragmentation?
I can answer immediately because that was a question that I asked at the very beginning when OpenJDK was actually became open sourced. And I asked exactly this question, and I was dismissed with, oh, yeah, don't worry. But at the time, the concept of a GA label that was applied to OpenJDK was not even in the picture. People would say, oh yeah, we cut a certain Git commit, and then that's the release, and we're good. But then people were vendors were starting adding features, or getting a different Git commit and everything, and say, okay, now how do I know what version of the JDK I'm running? At the very beginning, there was this incident with Debian that created downported back to 9 some feature of 10. But then the JVM was actually installing as JDK 9, but was actually, if you were doing Java minus version, it was printing out Java 10. And that was a royal mess. I mean, that was an obvious mistake that happened in the past, but it was scaring people out. It's like, oh, wow, one second. If I download, this version from a trusted repository, such the Debian one, but I get something that is in the middle of nowhere, didn't pass the TCK and whatnot, what am I running? Am I running something that is trusted in any way, shape, or form? And so that raised like a big question. But as I said, vendors don't answer these questions. My take is I stick with the adopt OpenJDK because I kind of trust that they take the GA tag on the OpenJDK GitHub and they build that, and that's it. That's the one thing that I trust. Vendors, I don't use vendors. I could trust vendors, but they need to be, crystal clear to me on this, and they should be able to say, hey, here's release notes. We have taken the code from this tag in OpenJDK, which is a public one. We have applied these patches, and that's what you're running. We'll see.
I mean, it is going to get complex, right? I absolutely agree. Adopt OpenJDK, or Adoptium, as I guess it's soon going to be called, is the rational place to go. Or you could pay Oracle, and you kind of know that you're getting Oracles. With these others, I'm not really sure what's my motivation to say I'm going to go to Zulu. But with Corretto, for example, if I run something inside AWS, there's a good chance that that's what I'm just getting it, right? Or that's the easiest to get. Of course, I could find an image that doesn't have it, but so it's going to make your life much harder as a library provider. Who may well get subtle bugs because of whatever.
Yep. Because the fact that it passes the TCK doesn't mean that they follow the same implementation from some libraries. They are differences.
Sure.
And sometimes they are trying to improve their performance in some particular vendors, like Corretto.
Yeah.
But
and that's,
I didn't even ask. Okay.
Well, that's where the OpenJDK encapsulation, like the strong encapsulation that is coming with 16 and then 17, it is going to somehow help with this, because libraries will not be able to play too much with the JDK internals, and so they have restricted their ability to play with the JDK only through public APIs, and that's a good thing. It will eventually avoid that people will leverage implementation differences.
Yeah, that may be another good reason to move forward.
Yeah, well, for example, we just moved the Jetty build from 15 to 16. And of course, we had like, I think 20 test failures, or probably 40 or something around that. And the reason is that we are integrating with a library that plays badly with the JDK, doing deep reflection on JDK classes. And of course, the JDK default for Java 16 is now deny, and so don't do that. And so we had 40 test failures just because of that. And now we have to add a bunch of add opens, waiting for this library to update and remove those hacks.
Yeah. I mean, that friction is going to continue, right? That probably no one's going to want to move to 17 for production in August. But 11 seems kind of a good point to be at.
There is a question about 11. Do Java 11 bring user-facing relevant benefits over Java 8, like big performance improvements? So this is because people are using cloud-based application. Yes. So what could be the highlight, some of the most appealing reasons for upgrading that can be justified for the customers? So 11.
So I can answer that. So the first time that I deployed Jetty to serve our own website, and I moved from 8 to 9, so not even 11, but 8 to 9, the startup time for Jetty was with Java 8 for our own website, which is super small, actually, forwards the call to WordPress. It was about 30 seconds. With Java 9, it went back to like 4-5 seconds, maybe something like that. So much so that the first time that I actually ran Jetty on the website, on the new website, and it was like, Jetty start, enter, and then boom. And then it's like, what? Oh, there was an error. I was thinking, well, there was an error because it started too fast. So there are performance improvements on that can save you money especially when you run on the cloud, because it will consume less CPU, will load faster, and all the kind of magic thing. But it's not only about the big performance improvement or stuff. It's like right now, I think the onus is on you to justify why you want to stay on 8 when you know that the platform is going to improve and improve and improve and be a lot better every single major release. So why do you want to stay on 8? It's like, for example, I'm upgrading Spring from 4 to 5. Why is that? Well, because they streamline things, they have performance improvement with that. Great. Okay, so why are you not doing this for Java? There's no explanation to me. It's like, just do it.
Well, let me also actually echo your technical debt issue, because moving from 8 to 11, that's when you climb the module hurdle the first time.
Yes.
And if you have to climb from 8 to 17, that might be a pretty steep jump, because 8 to 11 is still fairly permissive. And so when things aren't, when you're running into module issues, you get warnings, but you can react to them. If you go from 8 to 17, it's all going to be closed up to you, and you're going to have a heck of a time.
Yes.
So I think that since at some point one has to pay that technical debt, you might as well do it in reasonable chunks.
Indeed, I totally agree with you that the big hurdle is, in my opinion, 8 to more than 8, wherever you go. And once you've done that, and now the common case is 8 to 11. That's a big jump. You don't want to accumulate debt on that jump. Once you are on 11, then all the other updates going to whatever future version is very, very smooth in our experience. And so yes, with Java 16 now we have had this encapsulation problem, but that was announced, it was coming, it came, it's here. Go and fix it in the libraries that still do nasty stuff with JDK internals. But once you get the libraries done, well, then you're good to go. And so move forward.
Actually, we had this session with Mark, and he was talking about in critical production systems, how do you upgrade Living? Because obviously there is always a compelling reason to upgrade. And yes,
There you go. Hi, Mark.
Yes,
Hi, Mark.
Here's Mark. I'm so happy about this.
Hello,
Mark.
thank you for having me here.
Yes. So, what could you tell us about this discussion about we have so upgrading? I mean, you made the super example in your session.
I mean, I can only second what's already mentioned here, and maybe the commercial side of the thing is also important for the enterprises that cannot afford to update. I mean, especially if you're before Java 8, you're running on an unsupported version, you won't get updates for that. If there's any issue, if you need to replace your operating system one day and buy new machines, you may not have a Java version you can even install on that machines. I mean, currently we have a strong trend towards ARM architectures. The cloud providers probably will, due to energy efficiency, will move more and more to ARM. And now we get new operating systems which are not based on Intel. And so how do you get a Java 7 VM for that? I mean, probably you can buy them maybe at Oracle or so for tons of money, but you won't get that for free. So you can think maybe you better invest the money and moving to a new Java version and have also the new platform supported. And maybe your developers will force you because they cannot use their shiny new MacBooks anymore with the new Java version.
So, for example, one of the reasons that I get told we're not updating is, the production side of things is handled by a different group. They don't want to update because, you know, they cost things like the infamous sysops. And their argument is, well, I can get like for free updates in the sense that they don't have to do anything for the operative system. Because, for example, if you have Ubuntu, there is a cron job every day. It pings the repositories and say, is there any update? And then prompts you with the update. You can automate everything and you're good to go. Okay, so we cannot do this with Java. Can you not, really? Because there are tools and everything that can actually query repositories for Java and download to you the version and the vendor that you would like to install in your system. And so keeping the whole thing up to date. I'm not saying, for example, going from 16 to 17 in production without testing before, but going from 16.00 to 16.01 when the usual 3 months security patches come in. Why not? We do this all the times in our phones and, downloading the latest patches for Android and whatnot. And same for Spring, same for Jetty. We have recently released a couple of releases because of security advisories that were filed against us. And so we ask people, hey, please do upgrade. And we tell the Spring guys, which depend on Jetty, hey, please use the latest version of Jetty because there's a security issue, and so on and so forth. So I think it's more like a mental process. It's like you have to have a process in your company to upgrade everything from the operative system up to your library. And just because JDK 8 works, it's not a good reason to stay there and update all the rest. And it's like, why do I still have this old thing here? So yeah,
absolutely, and you really should get used to run updates on your update your production systems. As a friend of mine always tells, so if it hurts, do it more often.
Nice. That applies to running, I guess, Mark. For those who don't know, Mark is a runner. So.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And a swimmer, And there are some performance improvement like compact strings that you don't have to do anything and you will benefit. And there are some times that you have to invest into using more or changing your code for using the features, but you still benefit. And as you have said, you get the feedback of what is going to be a painful situation in the near future. That it has to happen because the libraries will probably want to upgrade, or new tools wouldn't want to start with an old version of Java. So there's always a compelling reason to migrate or to upgrade.
Yeah. And there have been few comments here that says, oh, no, we use WebLogic. We have, for example, a certification constraint to stay on a very specific Java version because that's the Java version that WebLogic is certified against. Well, that's a very good reason, you know, and it's an economical reason. Okay, so now you need to sit down and say, okay, how long am I staying here? Because I told you, you know, developing in Java 17 is a lot, a lot better. Your developers will be so much happier, and you know, you have to put on the weight scale fundamentally what is it important, and you know, what are the consequences of staying on a old platform, old WebLogic and everything, and you know, try to move away from that. There are companies, for example, that help you to move away from these kind of old scenarios, and maybe the cost to get a help to move away from an old WebLogic version to where maybe you don't even use, let's say, AJBs, but it's just a web application inside WebLogic. Well, then, you know, there are companies that help you out, and maybe paying those companies to help you out moving away from WebLogic costs you a lot less than a single year of WebLogic thing. Now, I will not be sued by Oracle, I hope, by saying that. But I'm just saying, as an example, I took WebLogic as an example, but you can speak about this for anything, right? So it's always a trade-off. What I'm saying is that update. Let me put it in the other way. Don't stay on Java 8 just because you don't know, or something like that. I mean, if you have a very good reason, like the WebLogic case, well, okay. But if you don't, then yeah, just go for the upgrade.
Yeah, the developers will thank you.
Okay. If there is any other question, please ask it in the chat. If not, I wanted to ask you about modules. What's your experience with that? I mean, like records now, back some years ago, modules was like the keyword. It has passed enough years, so modules should have been adopted. They didn't. What do you think happened?
Well, let me speak to that, because I said I'll start believing in modules for everyone. I mean, modules have an undeniable advantage for Oracle, for the architecture of the JVM and the JDK itself, and they're allowing this kind of encapsulation that we badly need. But what about other people? And I said I'll believe that modules will be a thing for general programmers when I see the Java EE web servers being implemented with Java platform modules. And so what did Oracle do? They immediately ditched their Java EE effort. So they didn't have to do it. No, I'm sure that's not why they did it. But anyway, so I have seriously not seen, these are therefore large scale projects, you know, for big systems. I have not personally seen a big system that has a modular architecture. I've seen some libraries, some components that have been modularized just in case someone wants to use them as modules, but I've not seen a big system.
I mean, I haven't seen a big system which uses a Java module system, but I've seen a lot of big systems which uses other modularization systems which has been established over the years. And this is the problem with modules. It basically competes with systems like OSGI or other component systems which has been there since years. And maybe it's a bit too late in the game to really get that adopted. And maybe some major frameworks have to jump on the modules path and the modules train to make them successful.
I know that you're waiting, Simone, to answer this because it's so close to your heart. But the room is closing down. We can continue the modules discussion in the Hangout. So the link to the Hangout is in the chat. So I mean the room will close really soon. So maybe we can move to the Hangout now.